The teacher took the boy's lunch every day, but one day, his father put this in his backpack. Sam was a small, quiet boy who always tried his best to stay out of trouble. Every morning, he would wake up early, brush his teeth carefully, and eat a simple breakfast his mother had prepared. It was usually a slice of bread, a little jam, and a glass of milk. Sam liked to eat slowly, enjoying each bite, because he knew that breakfast was important to give him energy for the long day ahead. After breakfast, he would pack his school bag neatly. Inside, there was always a notebook, some pencils, his favorite storybook, and of course, his lunch. His lunch was simple too: a sandwich his mother made, sometimes a small apple, or a little treat if it was a special day. Sam took pride in packing his lunch himself, making sure it was neat and ready to enjoy at school. Every day, Sam walked to school with a careful step. The sun would be rising, birds chirping, and the air would be cool and fresh. He liked the quiet walk because it gave him time to think about the day ahead. Sometimes he imagined adventures in faraway lands, sometimes he thought about the games he would play with his friends during recess. Sam was a thoughtful child, and he noticed small details others might overlook. He noticed the way the leaves fluttered in the wind, how the sunlight made patterns on the sidewalk, and how friendly the neighbors waved at him. School, for Sam, was not just a place to learn letters and numbers, it was also a place where he wanted to feel safe, respected, and valued. But something unusual started happening when Sam reached his classroom. His teacher, Mr. Carter, was a man in his 40s, with a strict face and sharp eyes. He seemed kind sometimes, but there was something about the way he looked at Sam that made the boy uneasy. It all started on a Monday. Sam opened his lunchbox during lunch break, expecting to see the sandwich his mother had carefully made. But it was empty. Confused, he checked again, thinking he might have made a mistake. No, the sandwich was gone. His small apple was gone too. Sam's heart sank. He didn't understand what had happened. He asked a classmate quietly, hoping for an answer, but no one seemed to know. The next day, it happened again. And the day after that, too. Every day, Sam's lunch would disappear. He began to dread lunch hour, feeling anxious and unsure. Sam tried to understand why this was happening. Maybe he was forgetting to put something in his lunchbox, he thought. Maybe someone was playing a prank. But the truth was worse. It was Mr. Carter, the teacher, who was taking his lunch every single day. Sam didn't understand why. He had never done anything to upset Mr. Carter. He had always listened carefully in class, completed his homework, and followed the rules. Yet, his lunch disappeared without explanation. Each day, Sam would sit quietly at the lunch table, watching the other children eat their food. He tried to hide his sadness, but it was hard. His stomach growled quietly, and sometimes he felt a little dizzy from hunger. His friends noticed that something was wrong, but Sam was too shy to explain. He didn't want to get in trouble or make things worse. The situation began to affect more than just Sam's lunch hour. He started feeling tired and weak in the afternoons. Paying attention in class became harder because his stomach was empty. Reading and writing, which he usually enjoyed, now felt like a struggle. Sam's favorite storybooks lay closed in his bag during lessons, and even drawing, which usually brought him joy, didn't seem as fun. The small happiness he felt in school was slowly fading. And yet, Sam remained polite and quiet. He didn't complain or yell. He simply endured, hoping that somehow, this problem would disappear on its own. At home, Sam tried not to complain too much to his parents. He didn't want them to be angry or upset. But sometimes, he couldn't hide his sadness. One evening, while helping his mother set the table for dinner, he quietly said, "Mom, I don't know what's happening, but my lunch keeps disappearing at school." His mother looked concerned. She knelt down beside him and asked gently, "Who is taking your lunch, Sam?" Sam shrugged. "I think, maybe the teacher," he whispered. His mother's eyes widened in surprise. She asked him to tell her everything, and slowly, Sam explained how every day he opened his lunchbox to find it empty. His mother listened carefully, holding his hand and nodding. She didn't scold him or panic, instead, she reassured him that it wasn't his fault. "We will figure this out together," she said softly. "You don't have to be hungry or worried." The next day, Sam returned to school feeling a mixture of nervousness and hope. He wondered if telling his parents would change anything. At lunch, he sat at the table, holding his lunchbox tightly. When he opened it, his food was gone again. The sadness washed over him, but he remembered his mother's words. He would not let this break him. He finished the day quietly, keeping his head down in class, and walked home slowly. That evening, he shared the day's events with his father, who listened with concern. Sam's father, Mr. Johnson, was a strong, calm man with a kind smile. He noticed the sadness in Sam's eyes and the slight slouch in his posture. He could tell this was more than just a small problem, it was affecting his son deeply. Mr. Johnson decided he needed to pay closer attention. He asked Sam to show him the lunchbox and what he usually brought. He asked Sam about his interactions with the teacher and his feelings during school hours. Sam explained everything honestly, sharing his fear and confusion. Mr. Johnson's expression changed from concern to determination. He wanted to protect his son, but he also wanted to handle the situation wisely. He knew that shouting or accusing the teacher without proof could create more problems. Instead, he began thinking of a clever way to make sure Sam would not go hungry again and that the teacher would understand the mistake. Meanwhile, at school, the days continued. Sam remained a quiet observer. He watched the other children laugh and eat, and he tried to join in, but the hunger made it hard. He noticed the small joys around him, the friends sharing a joke, the sunlight streaming through the windows, the sound of pencils scratching on paper, but the missing lunch weighed on him. He began to wonder if he would ever feel safe during lunchtime. He imagined what it would be like to enjoy his food, to eat peacefully like everyone else. It was a simple wish, but for Sam, it felt almost impossible. Yet, deep inside, he held a small hope that one day, things would change. At home, his parents continued to support him. They offered extra snacks after school and listened to his worries. They reminded him that he was a good boy and that no one had the right to take away what belonged to him. Their support gave Sam a sense of strength, even when he felt weak and uncertain. He started to believe that maybe, just maybe, a solution was coming. Little did Sam know, the next days would bring a change he had never expected, a change that would teach him that sometimes, even small actions can make a big difference. Sam went to bed each night thinking about school, hoping for a better day tomorrow. He dreamed of sitting at the lunch table, opening his lunchbox, and seeing his sandwich and apple just as he packed them. He dreamed of smiling at his friends, feeling proud and safe. And though the days had been difficult, Sam's quiet courage and gentle spirit kept him going. He was determined not to give up, even when things seemed unfair. For a small boy like Sam, these simple moments, holding on to hope, trusting in his parents, and believing in himself, were the most important battles he could fight. The next week began just like any other for Sam, but inside, he felt a growing mix of worry and determination. He had survived last week without much complaint, but the emptiness in his stomach during lunch had left a mark. Each morning, as he walked to school, he tried to imagine that today might be different. Maybe today, something would change. The crisp morning air brushed against his face, the birds sang their usual songs, and the sun rose gently over the neighborhood, but Sam's mind was elsewhere, focused on the one moment of the day he dreaded most, lunch. When he entered his classroom, Mr. Carter was already there, organizing papers on his desk. The teacher looked serious as usual, and Sam felt the familiar knot of tension in his stomach. He took his seat quietly, trying not to draw attention. Around him, other students laughed, chatted, and settled into their morning routine. Sam wanted to join in, but a shadow of anxiety followed him. Every time he glanced at Mr. Carter, he wondered if today would be another day his lunch disappeared. The fear of hunger was now joined by a fear of the unknown, a worry that he could not explain. During the morning lessons, Sam tried to focus on reading and writing. His teacher assigned a story for the class to read, and students were asked to share their thoughts afterward. Sam loved stories and normally enjoyed reading, but today, his mind kept wandering to the lunchbox waiting in his bag. What if his lunch was gone again? What if he was too hungry to concentrate? He tried to shake off the thoughts and pay attention, but it was difficult. He wrote his answers as best as he could, hoping no one would notice his distraction. Finally, it was time for lunch. Sam's heart pounded as he opened his lunchbox. And as expected, the sandwich, the apple, and even the small treat his mother had packed were gone. Sam's stomach sank, and for a moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. The same scene repeated itself day after day, and though he had started to accept it as reality, it still hurt. Some of the other children noticed and whispered among themselves. A few asked Sam if he forgot to bring his lunch, but he quietly shook his head, too embarrassed to explain the truth. He tried to eat what little he had left, sometimes scavenging crumbs from his bag or sharing snacks with friends, but nothing could replace the feeling of having a full meal. Sam's attempts to fix the problem were careful but often unsuccessful. One day, he tried hiding his lunch under his notebook, thinking that if Mr. Carter couldn't see it, he couldn't take it. Another day, he brought 2 sandwiches, hoping that even if one was taken, he would have another. But somehow, Mr. Carter always managed to find them. It seemed as if no matter what Sam did, his lunch would disappear. The frustration began to grow. Sam felt powerless, trapped in a situation he could not control. And yet, he never gave up. Each morning, he packed his lunch carefully, believing that maybe today would be different. Sam's friends began to notice his distress more clearly. Some of them offered to share their food, and others tried to comfort him. "It's not fair," whispered one of his classmates. "Why does he take your lunch every day?" But Sam, shy as he was, didn't answer. He didn't want to cause trouble or draw attention to himself. The kindness of his friends was comforting, but it also reminded him of what he was missing. He longed to eat his own food in peace, to sit without worry, and to feel like he belonged just like everyone else. At home, the situation was slowly becoming a topic of discussion. Sam's father, Mr. Johnson, observed his son carefully. He noticed the little changes in Sam's behavior, the way he sometimes skipped breakfast because he didn't want to get hungry too quickly, the way he hesitated when talking about school, and the sadness in his eyes that no amount of encouragement seemed to lift completely. One evening, Mr. Johnson asked Sam to tell him about lunch again. Sam explained everything in detail, even though it hurt to repeat the story. His father listened without interruption, nodding and asking gentle questions. He wanted to understand fully before deciding what to do. As Mr. Johnson learned more, he began to think carefully about a solution. He knew that confronting the teacher angrily could cause more problems for Sam. He also knew that Sam needed to feel safe and confident at school. He wanted a solution that would teach the teacher a lesson in the right way without causing shame or harm. Mr. Johnson thought about many possibilities. Could he speak to the principal? Could he write a note? Could he come up with a clever plan that would make the point clear? He decided that careful planning and observation were the best approach. Meanwhile, at school, Sam continued to endure the daily challenge. He began noticing small patterns in Mr. Carter's behavior. The teacher always seemed to take the lunches at a certain time, and he often left the classroom briefly before returning. Sam watched quietly, trying to understand what prompted the action. While other students played or chatted, Sam observed the teacher closely, noting little details that might help explain the behavior. He realized that Mr. Carter was not always aware of who was watching, and maybe this could be useful in figuring out a solution. Sam's internal struggle also deepened. He felt a mixture of anger and sadness. Why should he be punished for no reason? Why should someone take away his lunch, something so personal and important? These questions swirled in his mind during class and at home. Yet, despite the frustration, Sam remained polite and thoughtful. He didn't lash out or become mean. Instead, he quietly wondered if there could be a way to fix the problem without creating conflict. This careful thinking, even at a young age, showed a wisdom beyond his years. During recess, Sam sometimes shared his feelings with friends in hushed tones. They offered encouragement, reminding him that he was not alone. One friend said, "Maybe your dad will think of something. He always knows what to do." Sam felt a flicker of hope. He trusted his parents, and he began imagining that maybe the solution was near. He tried to focus on small joys, playing a game with friends, laughing at a joke, and enjoying the sunshine. Even though the hunger still lingered, Sam learned to find moments of happiness in the day. At home, the family began making small adjustments. Sam's mother added a few extra snacks to his bag, just in case, and sometimes included a note with words of encouragement. These small gestures reminded Sam that he was loved and supported. His father continued to observe and plan. He researched ideas carefully, thinking of clever ways to ensure Sam would have a peaceful lunch and that Mr. Carter would understand the importance of fairness. Every evening, Mr. Johnson reassured Sam that things would improve and that he did not need to feel ashamed or afraid. As the week went on, Sam's resilience grew. Though he still experienced the same challenge at lunch, he began to develop patience and careful thinking. He learned to notice patterns, to trust his family, and to remain calm even in difficult situations. He understood that some problems could not be solved immediately, but with careful planning and support, a solution could be found. This growing sense of patience and hope became a quiet strength within him, helping him endure each day with courage. By the end of the week, Sam felt a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. He had survived another series of lunches disappearing and had learned to cope in small ways. But deep down, he felt a spark of excitement for what might come next. He didn't know exactly how, but he trusted that his parents, especially his father, had a plan to help him. The thought of change gave him a sense of hope he had not felt before. Even though the teacher's actions were unfair, Sam began to understand that he could rely on support, patience, and careful thinking to face challenges. And so, as Sam went to bed on Friday night, he felt a quiet sense of determination. He knew that next week could bring something different. He held on to the belief that his situation could change, that fairness could be restored, and that he could enjoy his lunch without fear. The week had been difficult, but it had also taught Sam something important, that even when life seems unfair, patience, courage, and support from loved ones can help overcome challenges. With these thoughts, Sam closed his eyes and drifted to sleep, ready to face whatever the next week might bring. The following week started much like the previous ones, but there was a new sense of determination in Sam. He felt the quiet strength that came from knowing his father was aware of the problem and that a solution might be on its way. Though he still felt anxious about lunch, he tried to focus on his lessons and on the small joys of being at school. The mornings were cool and fresh, and Sam walked to school carefully, noticing the sunlight shining through the trees and the cheerful chirping of birds. He imagined that today, things could be different. That small hope made the walk feel lighter than usual, even if his heart still carried a bit of worry. When Sam entered his classroom, Mr. Carter was arranging papers and giving instructions to the students. The teacher seemed busy and focused, unaware that Sam's eyes were on him. Sam felt a familiar flutter of nervousness. Would his lunch disappear again? He opened his lunchbox slightly, just enough to peek inside, and his heart sank when he saw that it was untouched. For a brief moment, a smile appeared on his face, because the lunch was still there. But Sam knew he had to remain cautious. He could not assume that things had changed yet. He carefully closed the lunchbox and kept it near him, watching and waiting for any sign of trouble. Sam tried to pay attention during the morning lessons, but his mind often drifted to his lunch and to the idea of change. He knew that his father was planning something, though he did not know exactly what it would be. This thought gave him courage. Instead of feeling helpless, he felt that he was part of a plan, even if he was only the one carrying the lunch. He focused on his reading assignment, noting the words and ideas in the story. For the first time in a long while, he felt a small sense of control over his day. Even though he still felt the faint pangs of hunger from previous lunches, he reminded himself that something would be done. At recess, Sam's friends noticed the change in his attitude. He seemed more alert, more confident, even if he was still quiet. One friend asked, "Did something happen? You seem different today." Sam smiled slightly but said nothing, not wanting to reveal the secret of his father's plan. He enjoyed playing with his friends, running around in the fresh air, and laughing at simple games. For the first time in many days, he could enjoy the moment without worrying constantly about losing his lunch. The little things, shared jokes, playful shouts, and laughter gave him energy and helped him focus on the present. Back in the classroom, Mr. Carter continued his usual routine. He gave lessons in mathematics, reading, and science, assigning tasks that the students completed quietly at their desks. Sam noticed the teacher moving around, watching the students, and occasionally giving instructions. Sam had learned to observe Mr. Carter closely. He noticed patterns in his behavior when he left the room, when he spoke sharply, and when he seemed distracted. Sam realized that understanding these patterns might help him handle the situation more carefully. Though he was still unsure of the teacher's intentions, he felt a growing sense of readiness. He no longer felt completely powerless. After lunch, Sam returned home and told his parents about the day so far. He shared that his lunch had remained in his lunchbox and that he had been more attentive and confident. His father, Mr. Johnson, listened carefully and nodded. He reminded Sam to stay cautious and patient. "Change doesn't happen all at once," he said. "But we are getting closer. Just continue to be careful and trust that we will handle this in the right way." Sam felt reassured by his father's words. They reminded him that he was not alone and that the situation was being taken seriously. That evening, Mr. Johnson quietly prepared a plan. He thought about the best way to address the problem without embarrassing Sam or creating unnecessary conflict. He considered different options carefully. Should he speak directly to the teacher, or should he use a more creative approach? He wanted to ensure that Sam's dignity remained intact, that the teacher understood the wrong of taking someone else's lunch, and that the lesson would be remembered without causing harm. The father's mind worked carefully, considering every detail, imagining the moment when the plan would come into effect. The next morning, Sam packed his lunch as usual, noticing the slight difference in the bag. His father had added a small but clever element to the lunch, something that would catch attention in the right way. Sam was curious but nervous. What would happen when Mr. Carter saw it? His father reassured him, saying, "Just bring it to school, Sam. Everything else will happen on its own." Sam felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. For the first time in many days, he anticipated a moment of change, wondering how it would unfold. At school, Sam's confidence grew quietly. He walked to class with his head held a little higher, feeling that he had a small ally in his father and in the careful plan they had prepared. Mr. Carter, as usual, was absorbed in his own tasks, unaware of the shift that was about to happen. Sam took his seat and placed his lunchbox carefully on the table, feeling the familiar weight of curiosity and anticipation. For the first time in weeks, lunchtime felt different. Sam's heart beat faster, not with fear, but with hope. When lunch finally arrived, Sam opened his lunchbox slowly, aware of every movement. Inside, the surprise his father had prepared caught the teacher's attention immediately. It was something harmless but unusual, something that could not be ignored. Mr. Carter's eyes widened, and he paused, clearly startled. Sam watched quietly, unsure of what would happen next. He felt a mixture of fear and excitement, knowing that the moment of truth had arrived. The classroom was filled with a tense, silent curiosity as the other students began to notice the teacher's unusual reaction. Sam remained calm, following his father's instructions to stay seated and simply observe. He noticed the small change in Mr. Carter's expression from surprise to reflection, and finally to understanding. The teacher picked up the lunchbox carefully, examined its contents, and seemed to realize the lesson being presented. Sam felt a surge of relief and anticipation. He had trusted his father's plan, and now he saw it beginning to work. The tension that had followed him for weeks started to lift, replaced by a growing sense of hope and courage. After the unusual moment, Mr. Carter addressed the class. He spoke in a calm voice, acknowledging that everyone deserved respect and fairness. Sam felt a mixture of relief and pride as the teacher's words sank in. The message was clear: taking someone else's belongings, even something as small as a lunch, was wrong. Sam could hardly believe that the long weeks of worry and hunger were finally coming to an end. He realized that patience, observation, and careful planning could make a real difference. That afternoon, Sam returned home with a light heart. He shared the story with his parents, describing the moment of change in the classroom. His father smiled, proud of Sam's courage and careful observation. Sam's mother hugged him tightly, relieved that the weeks of struggle had finally ended. The family celebrated quietly, grateful that fairness had been restored and that Sam could once again enjoy his lunches in peace. The experience had been difficult, but it had also taught Sam a valuable lesson about patience, courage, and the power of thoughtful action. Over the next few days, Sam noticed a remarkable change. Mr. Carter no longer took lunches, and he treated all students with more fairness and attention. Sam felt safe, confident, and respected. He could finally enjoy his meals, focus on his studies, and participate fully in school activities. The small acts of kindness from his friends, the careful guidance of his parents, and his own quiet courage had combined to create a lasting positive change. Sam realized that even when situations seemed unfair and overwhelming, careful planning, patience, and trust in loved ones could make a big difference. By the end of the week, Sam's spirit had grown stronger. He walked to school with confidence, greeted his friends with smiles, and approached each day with optimism. He knew that challenges could come and go, but with courage, thoughtfulness, and support from family, he could face them. The experience with the missing lunches had been difficult, but it had also helped Sam develop patience, careful thinking, and resilience. He understood that fairness and respect were important, and that standing up for oneself could be done in a kind and clever way. Sam went to bed that night with a sense of satisfaction and hope. He reflected on the journey he had taken over the past weeks from fear and confusion to courage and understanding. He realized that even small actions, like trusting his parents and observing the world carefully, could lead to meaningful change. The lessons he had learned were more than about lunch, they were about life, fairness, and the power of patience and thoughtful action. With a quiet heart and a mind full of hope, Sam closed his eyes, ready for whatever adventures the next day might bring, confident in himself and in the love and support of his family. After the weeks of struggle, Sam began to notice subtle changes in himself. He had grown more observant, more careful, and more thoughtful. He paid attention to the small details around him, noticing things he had overlooked before: how the sunlight streamed through the classroom windows, the way his friends shared stories and laughter, and even the gentle rustling of the leaves outside. While these details had always been there, Sam now saw them with a new perspective. Life felt more complex than he had realized, and he understood that every action, no matter how small, could have an effect. At home, Sam's father, Mr. Johnson, had been quietly preparing for a clever plan. He wanted to ensure that the situation with Mr. Carter, the teacher who had taken Sam's lunch every day, would be addressed in a way that was fair, gentle, and effective. Mr. Johnson knew that confrontation alone could backfire, and that anger would not teach the teacher the right lesson. Instead, he decided to use a combination of cleverness and subtlety, ensuring that Sam would be safe while the lesson was learned. He spent time thinking carefully about what to put in the lunch that would catch attention without causing harm. The day before the plan was to be executed, Sam helped pack his lunch as usual. He noticed a slight change in the contents. Something extra had been added. His father smiled at him and whispered, "Everything will work out. Just follow our plan and stay calm." Sam felt a flutter of excitement mixed with nervousness. He wondered how Mr. Carter would react, and whether this small action could really change the teacher's behavior. As he closed the lunchbox, he felt the weight of responsibility in a new way. This was no longer just about eating his lunch, it was about fairness, courage, and trust. The next morning, Sam walked to school with a careful but determined step. He carried his lunch with him, aware of every movement, every sound, and every glance in the classroom. He was prepared to follow the instructions his father had given him, which were simple: stay calm, observe, and do nothing that could cause trouble. Sam's heart raced as he entered the classroom. Mr. Carter, as usual, was busy arranging papers and giving instructions. The teacher seemed absorbed in his work, unaware that a small but meaningful change was about to take place. When lunchtime arrived, Sam took a deep breath and opened his lunchbox. Inside was the special item his father had placed, harmless but designed to attract attention. As expected, Mr. Carter noticed it immediately. His expression shifted from surprise to confusion, and then to a thoughtful pause. Sam stayed quiet, watching carefully from his seat. He could feel the tension in the room, not from fear, but from anticipation. The other students also began to notice the unusual reaction, whispering softly among themselves. Sam's small act of courage, guided by his father's wisdom, was creating a moment of change that everyone could see. Mr. Carter picked up the lunchbox and examined its contents. For a few moments, he remained silent, clearly reflecting on the situation. Sam felt a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. Would the teacher understand the lesson, or would he react angrily? Sam reminded himself to stay calm and trust the plan. He remembered all the weeks of worry, all the days of hunger, and all the moments of quiet courage that had brought him to this point. He realized that this was more than just a lunch, it was a symbol of fairness and respect, and he hoped Mr. Carter would see it that way. Slowly, the teacher's expression began to soften. He looked around the room, noticing the small faces of his students, their curious eyes, and their expectation. Mr. Carter realized that taking Sam's lunch had been unfair, and perhaps he had not fully understood the impact of his actions. For the first time, he seemed to reflect on how his behavior affected others. Sam felt a wave of relief as he observed the change. It was a quiet moment, but it carried immense significance. The teacher's realization was the first step toward restoring fairness and respect in the classroom. Mr. Carter spoke to the class, his voice calm and thoughtful. He acknowledged that everyone deserved respect, and that taking someone else's belongings, even something as small as a lunch, was wrong. Sam listened carefully, feeling a mix of relief and pride. His father's plan had worked exactly as intended. The teacher was learning an important lesson, and Sam's own courage and patience had played a key role. The tension that had clouded the classroom for weeks began to lift, replaced by a sense of fairness and understanding. After the announcement, Sam felt a new sense of confidence. He realized that even small actions could create meaningful change when guided by thoughtfulness and courage. The experience had taught him patience, observation, and the importance of standing up for oneself in a calm and careful way. He also understood the power of parental support, and how trust and guidance from loved ones could help navigate difficult situations. The weeks of struggle had been challenging, but they had also given Sam important lessons that he would carry with him for the rest of his life. Over the next few days, Sam noticed remarkable changes in the classroom. Mr. Carter no longer took lunches, and he treated all students with fairness and respect. Sam could finally enjoy his meals without fear, and he felt safe and valued. The small acts of courage, observation, and careful planning had transformed the situation. Sam learned that fairness was not always immediate, but with patience and clever action, it could be achieved. The classroom became a more positive and respectful environment, and Sam felt proud of the role he had played in creating that change. At home, the family celebrated quietly. Sam shared the story of the day the plan worked, describing the teacher's reaction and the sense of relief that followed. His father smiled, proud of Sam's careful observation and courage. His mother hugged him tightly, relieved that the weeks of struggle had come to an end. The family understood that the experience had been challenging, but it had also taught Sam valuable lessons about fairness, patience, courage, and the power of careful planning. Sam continued to grow in confidence. He approached school with optimism, greeted his friends with smiles, and participated fully in classroom activities. He felt a sense of empowerment, knowing that he could face challenges with thoughtfulness, patience, and trust in those who supported him. The experience with his lunch had been more than a small struggle, it had been a lesson in life. Sam realized that difficult situations could be overcome with courage, clever thinking, and the support of loved ones. By the end of the week, Sam's life at school had transformed. He was no longer anxious about lunchtime, and he felt respected by both his teacher and classmates. The lessons he had learned extended beyond the classroom. They were lessons about fairness, patience, courage, and the importance of standing up for oneself in a calm and thoughtful way. Sam understood that small, thoughtful actions could create meaningful change, and that even when situations seemed unfair, there was always a way to address them wisely. As Sam lay in bed that night, he reflected on the journey of the past weeks. He remembered the fear and confusion, the anxiety during lunch, and the quiet courage that had helped him endure. He thought about his parents' support, the clever plan, and the teacher's eventual understanding. He realized that the experience had made him stronger, wiser, and more confident. Sam closed his eyes with a sense of peace and accomplishment, knowing that he had faced a challenge, learned important lessons, and emerged stronger and more thoughtful. The days that followed were filled with normal school routines, but now Sam approached each day with a new perspective. He observed carefully, acted thoughtfully, and faced challenges calmly. He felt proud of himself for enduring weeks of difficulty with courage, and grateful for his parents' guidance and support. He had learned that even in situations that seemed unfair and overwhelming, careful observation, patience, and clever planning could create positive change. Sam's story of courage and cleverness became an example to his friends as well. They admired his ability to remain calm and thoughtful even when faced with difficulty. They saw that small actions, guided by patience and careful planning, could make a meaningful difference. The experience created a ripple effect, teaching not only Sam but also his classmates the value of fairness, respect, and thoughtful action. By the time the week came to an end, Sam felt a sense of accomplishment that went far beyond simply having his lunch returned. He had learned life lessons about patience, courage, observation, and the power of clever and thoughtful action. He had learned that challenges could be overcome not through anger or conflict, but through careful planning, support from loved ones, and quiet courage. And most importantly, he had learned that fairness and respect were worth standing up for, even in the smallest of ways. After the lesson had been quietly learned in the classroom, Sam felt a growing sense of peace. The tension that had followed him for weeks, ever since his lunches had begun to disappear, was finally gone. He no longer feared lunchtime, no longer worried that his simple, homemade meal would vanish. Instead, he felt a sense of safety and trust that he had not experienced in a long time. The weeks of struggle had been difficult, but now they seemed like a distant memory. Each day, as he opened his lunchbox and found it untouched, he felt a small surge of joy. It was a feeling that seemed almost magical after so many weeks of anxiety and uncertainty. Sam's father, Mr. Johnson, was proud not only of the solution he had orchestrated but also of the way Sam had handled the situation. Sam had remained calm, polite, and patient throughout the ordeal. He had observed carefully, trusted his parents, and endured discomfort without lashing out or complaining. These qualities, his father knew, were far more valuable than the lunch itself. They were lessons in courage, patience, and thoughtful action. Mr. Johnson often reminded Sam that sometimes the most important victories in life were quiet and internal, not loud or dramatic. The classroom itself began to change in subtle ways. Mr. Carter, the teacher, no longer singled anyone out. He treated all the students with a new level of fairness and respect. Even the other children noticed a difference in the atmosphere. The classroom felt lighter, calmer, and more welcoming. Sam was able to focus fully on his lessons, participate in activities with confidence, and even help others when needed. The small act of courage and the clever plan that his father had created had transformed not only Sam's experience but also the environment of the classroom. It was a lesson that extended beyond one lunchbox. It was about fairness, respect, and understanding. Sam began to notice other positive changes in himself as well. He felt more confident in speaking up when something seemed wrong, more capable of observing and understanding the behaviors of others, and more patient in handling difficulties. He realized that the weeks of struggle had taught him valuable skills that could help him in many areas of life, not just at school. He had learned that challenges could be met with thoughtfulness rather than anger, with patience rather than frustration, and with careful planning rather than fear. These lessons gave Sam a sense of pride that went far beyond the relief of having his lunch returned. At home, the family celebrated in small, meaningful ways. Sam would tell his parents about his day, sharing moments of joy and reflection. His father would listen carefully, offering guidance and encouragement. His mother would prepare his lunch with extra care, adding small treats and notes of encouragement. These daily gestures reminded Sam of the love and support that surrounded him. He understood that he was not alone in facing challenges, and that the guidance of his parents could help him navigate even the most difficult situations. This sense of support and trust strengthened his confidence and resilience. Sam also began to form a deeper understanding of fairness and responsibility. He realized that everyone, whether a teacher, a classmate, or a family member, had a role to play in creating a positive environment. He saw that actions, even small ones, could have a significant impact on others. The weeks of struggle had made him more aware of the feelings of those around him. He became more empathetic toward his friends and classmates, noticing when they were upset or needed help. He understood that respect and fairness were not just rules to follow, but values to live by. As days turned into weeks, the story of Sam's experience spread quietly among his classmates. They admired his courage and patience, and many of them learned from his example. The classroom became a place where fairness and understanding were emphasized, and where students felt more confident in expressing themselves. Sam's small act of endurance, guided by his father's clever plan, had created a ripple effect, teaching others the importance of treating everyone with respect and kindness. Even though the initial conflict had been about a lunchbox, the lessons extended far beyond the immediate situation. Sam also began to enjoy school in ways he had not before. He could focus on his lessons without distraction, participate in classroom activities with enthusiasm, and interact with his friends without worry. Lunchtime became a period of joy, where he could eat his food, chat with friends, and even share snacks. The sense of relief and safety allowed him to experience school fully, and he developed a renewed love for learning. The positive changes reinforced the lessons of patience, courage, and thoughtful action that he had learned during the weeks of struggle. One afternoon, Sam's father asked him to reflect on the experience. "What have you learned from all of this?" he asked gently. Sam thought for a moment and then spoke carefully. "I learned that even when things seem unfair, you can handle them carefully. You don't have to get angry. You can think and trust the people who care about you. And sometimes, small actions can make a big difference." Mr. Johnson smiled proudly. These words reflected not only the experience with the lunchbox but also the deeper lessons of life that Sam had absorbed. It was a moment of understanding and growth that marked a turning point in Sam's young life. The teacher, Mr. Carter, also began to show signs of change. He treated students with more patience and consideration, realizing that his actions had consequences. The small lesson presented through Sam's lunchbox had helped him reflect on his behavior and improve. He became more mindful of fairness, understanding, and respect in his interactions with all students. The classroom became a healthier, more supportive environment, and Sam felt proud to be part of a positive change. The clever plan, patience, and courage had not only helped Sam but had also influenced the teacher and the wider classroom community. In the weeks that followed, Sam's confidence continued to grow. He felt capable of handling challenges with thoughtfulness, patience, and courage. He learned that seeking support from loved ones, observing situations carefully, and taking thoughtful action could lead to positive outcomes. He realized that even small steps, like remaining calm, speaking up in the right way, and trusting those who care for you, could create meaningful change. These lessons gave Sam a foundation of strength and resilience that would serve him well in the future. Sam also took time to appreciate the small joys of life. He noticed the beauty in everyday moments: the sunlight shining through the windows, the laughter of his friends, the warmth of his family, and the simple pleasure of enjoying a meal. He realized that these moments were valuable and worth cherishing. The experience with the lunchbox had taught him not only about fairness and courage but also about gratitude and appreciation for the people and moments that made life meaningful. By the end of the term, Sam had become a more confident, thoughtful, and resilient young boy. The weeks of struggle with his lunch had transformed into a journey of growth and understanding. He had learned the importance of fairness, patience, courage, thoughtful action, and support from loved ones. He had seen how small actions could create meaningful change, how trust and observation could guide decisions, and how perseverance could lead to positive outcomes. These lessons were now a part of Sam, shaping the way he approached challenges, relationships, and life itself. Sam's story became an inspiration to those around him. His classmates admired his calm and thoughtful approach, his teachers respected his resilience, and his family felt proud of the growth he had achieved. The experience, which had begun with the simple act of a teacher taking a lunchbox, had grown into a profound lesson about life, respect, courage, and patience. Sam had turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for learning, growth, and positive change. As Sam reflected on the experience one quiet evening, he understood the full significance of what had happened. The missing lunches, the clever plan by his father, the teacher's realization, and the eventual resolution all had taught him lessons that went far beyond school. He had learned about fairness, patience, courage, observation, support, thoughtful action, and the value of standing up for oneself in a kind and clever way. He had learned that even small, careful actions could create ripples of positive change in the world around him. With a heart full of gratitude and a mind full of understanding, Sam closed his eyes that night, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. He knew that life would bring new challenges, but he also knew that he had the tools to face them. He had learned that courage and patience, guided by thoughtful action and support from loved ones, could transform even the most difficult situations. Sam drifted into sleep, ready to face tomorrow with confidence, optimism, and the quiet strength that had been cultivated through weeks of challenge, reflection, and growth.